This video was brought to you by Imprint. Today, all eyes on Lebanon after deadly pager explosions rock the country. India's Jammu and Kashmir region holds its first local elections in over a decade, and the UN votes to demand Israel end its presence in occupied Palestinian territories. From TLDR News, this is your daily briefing for Wednesday the 18th of September, 2024. On Tuesday, at least 12 people were killed and nearly 3,000 others injured across Lebanon after 5,000 pagers that were being used for communication by the militant group Hezbollah exploded simultaneously. According to a senior Lebanese security source, Israel's Mossad spy agency planted an explosive board inside the devices months ago. And while Israel hasn't commented on the explosions, it's widely assumed that they're responsible, with the attacks certain to further raise tensions. Now, we'll come back to the political impact of this in a moment, but first, let's look at what we actually know about the blasts, as this kind of attack on this kind of scale has basically never been seen before in modern warfare. At the moment, as the unexploded pagers are being examined, it's unclear how they could have been rigged to explode, but we do have some details. Firstly, the pagers were first being used by Hezbollah as a low-tech and therefore less hackable alternative to mobile phones in order to evade Israeli surveillance. They're about the size of a cigarette packet and can only receive information, not send it. They emit no signals and have no GPS, so therefore can't be traced. The pagers were reportedly manufactured for Taiwan-based firm Gold Apollo Systems by a Hungarian company in Europe and were brought into Lebanon earlier this year. The Taiwanese firm has obviously tried to distance itself from the attack and has said that the pagers were, quote, likely modified after export. One security source told Reuters that Mossad injected a board inside the devices with up to 3 grams of explosive, which are activated when a coded message is sent to them, and that they'd gone undetected by Hezbollah for months. So why did Israel choose to activate them now? Well, according to Israeli and US sources, they were detonated because Hezbollah had found out about a plan which they suggest was the opening move for an all-out offensive. But it also happened just hours after Israel threatened to step up its military action on its northern border with Lebanon. Earlier on Tuesday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's security cabinet voted to add securing the northern front against Hezbollah and, quote, returning the residents of the north securely to their homes to the country's war goals. Therefore, political analysts suggest that this was a statement of intent, with the Israeli military likely to shift their priorities towards fighting Hezbollah amid the ongoing war in Gaza. Obviously then, the attack has reignited fears for a full-scale war on the Lebanon-Israel border. So far, 10 Hezbollah members have been killed, plus 2 children, and Hezbollah has vowed to retaliate, saying this is another reckoning for Israel, and it will come, God willing. Hezbollah and Israel have been engaged in cross-border fighting for 11 months now, forcing tens of thousands of civilians on both sides of the border to flee, with no end to the fighting in sight. There's more on the way, but remember to subscribe and ring the bell for more daily briefing tomorrow. Plus, if you want to support the channel like CPT Muna, then consider joining the TLDR Daily Membership Program for just $1.99. Indian-administered Kashmir is voting in its first local elections for more than a decade, and for the first time since the disputed region was controversially stripped of its special status 5 years ago. Voting in Jammu and Kashmir is staggered across 3 stages, with the second and third phases scheduled for September 25th and October 1st, and vote counting taking place on October 8th, with results expected that same day. For context, both India and Pakistan administer part of Kashmir, and both claim the Muslim-majority region in its entirety. Militants in Indian-administered Kashmir have been fighting against Indian rule since 1989, with most Muslim Kashmiris either wanting to join Pakistan or unite the parts of Kashmir into an independent country. Now, previously, India-administered Kashmir had its own special status, granting it a level of autonomy. However, in 2019, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi stripped it of its statehood and divided it into 2 federally governed territories. Indian authorities subsequently imposed a security lockdown and communications blackout to preemptively curb unrest. Skip ahead to 2023, and the Indian Supreme Court upheld the government's downgrading of the region's status and set a deadline for local elections to be held by September 30th this year. As such, thousands of additional police and soldiers have been deployed to the restive region to provide security. Modi's BJP and the main opposition Indian National Congress are competing in these elections. However, as in previous elections, local Kashmiri parties are expected to dominate. The elected legislature and government will have some power, but as a union territory, it's the federal government who will primarily be in control. Nevertheless, the results will be an indication of how effective Modi's promotion of economic development to cement authority in the region has really been. Next, the United Nations General Assembly will today vote on a Palestinian resolution that demands Israel end its, quote, unlawful presence in Gaza and the occupied West Bank within a year. Following a ruling made by the top UN court in July, which found Israel's presence in Palestinian territories as unlawful, the resolution states that Israel needs to withdraw its military forces and evacuate all Israeli settlers. It calls on Israel to pay reparations to Palestinians and urges the international community to avoid trade and investments that help to maintain Israel's presence in their territories. The Palestinian UN ambassador demanded an end to the decades-long occupation and opened the assembly meeting yesterday saying Palestinians face an existential threat and that Israel is holding them in shackles. Meanwhile, Israel's ambassador to the UN urged member states to reject the resolution, describing it as an attempt to destroy Israel through diplomatic terrorism. The US ambassador to the UN held a similar line and told reporters that the resolution has a significant number of flaws and does not recognize that Hamas is a terrorist organization that runs Gaza. Given the UN General Assembly's previous positions on Israel and Palestine, this resolution is expected to be adopted. However, it won't be legally binding. Next, let's move to Europe, where European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen, who was re-elected for a second term earlier this summer, has named a new team to lead the Commission, the European Union's most powerful institution, for the next 5 years. Now, the people selected to hold the EU's two biggest jobs also come from the EU's two largest countries, with von der Leyen as Commission President being German, and France's outgoing Foreign Minister, Stéphane Séjourné, being in charge of the key industrial strategy portfolio. Spain's Deputy Energy Minister, Teresa Ribera, will also control a number of key policy areas as Executive Vice President for the EU's green transition. Now, 14 of the 27 commissioners belong to von der Leyen's centre-right group, the European People's Party, who won at the most recent European elections. Key jobs for shaping the Commission's response to Russia were rather appropriately given to countries bordering them. Finland's Henna Virkkunen has been nominated for tech sovereignty, security, and democracy. Lithuania's Andrius Kubilius is in line to become the first Defence and Space Commissioner, while Latvia's Valdis Dombrovskis will oversee economy and productivity. Dombrovskis will therefore likely play a crucial part in supporting Ukraine's reconstruction. And finally, Estonia's Kaja Kallas, perhaps the most outspoken critic of Russia, will be in charge of foreign policy. A key aim of this new commission will be reversing the bloc's lagging competitiveness, building a strong military manufacturing economy, and ensuring a fair transition to green energy. And finally, in some uplifting news, Monday was World Ozone Day, and according to the new bulletin published by the UN's Weather Agency, there is strong evidence that the ozone layer is well on track for a long-term recovery. World Ozone Day celebrates the implementation of the Montreal Protocol and its later amendment, the Kigali Agreement, which saw the end to the production of damaging ozone-depleting substances, and has been described as the most successful environmental treaty of all time. The agency said that if current policies remain in place, the ozone layer is expected to recover to 1980 levels, i.e. before the appearance of the ozone hole, by around 2066 over the Antarctic, by 2045 over the Arctic, and by 2040 for the rest of the world. The chair of the agency's Ozone Advisory Group said that it's critical that observations of the ozone layer and ozone-depleting substances are maintained over the coming decades. Fans of TLDR, like you, care about understanding the world around them. And that's where today's sponsor, Imprint, comes into play. Because if you care about building a life of learning, then Imprint is the app for you. It's a brand new way to learn, built from the ground up. And seriously, unless you've used the app before, you likely haven't experienced anything like this. That's because Imprint is beautifully illustrated and animated, creating a highly visual, bite-sized, and interactive learning experience. It's the perfect antidote to a world where social media tries to keep us mindlessly dopamine scrolling day in, day out. Their library includes courses on topics like psychology, history, philosophy, finance, productivity, and many more, as well as quick reads you can consume in a single sitting. In fact, I've been using the Essential Philosophy, Theories and Thinkers course, and it's been an excellent way to brush up on some knowledge from college that I genuinely thought was lost. And with all of the developments happening these days, from elections to AI to geopolitical tensions, it's been helpful to revisit some of the world's greatest thinkers. So make yourself feel better about your screen time, build a real habit of learning every day, and join the millions of people using Imprint. If you use the link in the description, the first 200 people will get 20% off an annual plan. Plus, they'll know you came from us.